I love how Marvel, when it comes to massively faster than light travel or just super speed travel, I love how they explain how the Nova type characters work when it comes to super speed. You know how beings with super speed, when they fly real fast, everything around them slows down so they can react to it when it comes to their combat speed and stuff. Wouldn't that be boring flying somewhere and everything is completely frozen in your eyesight? Wouldn't that be a long trip and boring, wouldn't you think? You're probably thinking, what am I talking about? When we see super speedsters running media, it looks like they're getting to their destination real quick, but you got to remember in their reflexes, this stuff is slowed down to them. I really like how Marvel handles this because even though you're super fast, running everywhere and everything looks like this, seems like this will be a long trip even for somebody like you if everything was frozen like this. So I like how they explain it when it comes to Nova speed. Like in this particular situation, this isn't necessarily Richard Rider, but this kind of can give you an idea of why the flights or flying to ridiculous distances isn't boring. Because when Nova type characters are flying through space at ridiculous fast speeds, they ask stuff like this: 5 minutes, 5 weeks. At hyperspeed, the answer is freakier than the question because the answer is both. I've been flying 5 minutes, I've been flying 5 weeks. When it comes to how their mind and stuff process speed, the helmet I wear feeds info right into my brain and it forces me to multitask. Thanks to it, my mind simultaneously slows down so I can react, dodge asteroids and suns, and speeds up so the seconds between them don't drag on like years. Because you know how if you're in super speed mode, everything slows down. So flying to another galaxy would be ridiculously boring if that whole flight to the whole galaxy was in slow motion. You see what I'm saying? He doesn't stay in super speed reflex mode. If there's nothing to dodge, it'll just go back to normal. So all that stuff doesn't have to drag out like years. It's probably one of the better explanations of super speed. Like this should apply for Richard Rider too. When Nova is flying through space like this, it's kind of hard to tell what's coming at you. That scan I just showed you explained is that when they're flying like this, the helmet and their reflexes allow everything to freeze like this so you can have the reflexes to dodge a planet that might hit you if you're moving at these ridiculous speeds. But since you don't want to have a boring ride, you don't want to ride all the way to another galaxy with everything frozen standing still like this. This would be a boring ride. It'll automatically change it to this so you can travel more distance so it won't be a boring ride. Then when a planet comes back about to hit you, that's when it'll automatically make everything slow down so you can react to it. Like, that's the type of stuff I'm talking about. Does that make sense to you? I love how they explain that when it comes to Nova type characters. Like, this occasion is Richard Rider, and I like how they really show off his speed and how he's able to fly in these enclosed areas with, he doesn't want to blow through the buildings and kill people, of course. It allows him to zip and zigzag without actually hitting the buildings with amazing speed. Nova Richard Rider. Imagine pulling up to an actual literal living planet, and with your energy blast, they're so potent, you can just blast a literal living planet and lobotomize them to the point where it's stated he would take centuries to heal. That's how mighty a single burst of Nova Force is. He's a being that can fly into a star, might I add, and actually survive with no major burns or injuries. He's a being we've seen get ganged up on, one of the beings being Venom. Multiple beings blasting him. We've seen him counter. We've seen him get blasted again. Despite them constantly ganging up on him, like 4v1, we've seen him counter, punch them off over and over again, despite them trying to team up on him. Nova from the Nova Corps is this mighty. Nova's power is beyond absurd. Marvel Earth, especially New York, is where a lot of superheroes in Marvel reside. If you're a villain, don't move to New York. But you forget that Marvel is a vast universe. Not everything is going on Earth. There's a lot of things going on outside of Earth. Like a good example of what I'm going over today is these Nova Corps space cops. Like one of the characters I'm going over today, Richard Rider, is a space cop in the Nova Corps. They're basically space police. Like you have the police on Earth, superheroes on Earth. They're like this when it comes to space. Except they're way better than any old ordinary police, considering in their lore and their history, Nova Corps was initially Xandar's superpowered militia, originally composed of 500 Xandorians, led by this being known as Nova Prime. In the past and present, Nova Centurions were imbued with Nova Force by the living computers of Xandar, aka World Mind, granting them flight, enhanced strength, and connection to the World Mind itself whenever they needed information to accomplish their mission. So when you hear me bring up Energy Blast a lot in this video, don't be surprised. That's one of their abilities they got. Emit electromagnetic static bursts, open stargates, like how Richard Rider does right here, for example, opening a stargate. See, when it comes to this Nova Corps Xandorian World Mind, which he has access to, this kind of gives him a lot of knowledge. It's recognized as the living computers of Xandar. It is a political and spiritual leader of the Xandorians and the Nova Corps. It is a collective artificial sentience that serves to govern and maintain all of Xandarian culture. It is also the possessor and distributor of the Nova Force, which is important for this guy's video I'm talking about today. This kind of creepy stuff can even take over Richard when he sleeps. Contains and controls the Nova Force, the cosmic energy that provides the Nova Corps and its members with extraordinary abilities. to help the Universal Protectors. And it's because of this world mind, Nova is able to instantly access entire databanks instantly. Databanks of alien planets, that is. It can even do calculations that even smart people consider very complex. Like, it comes in handy having something that's constantly giving you warnings about the beings you're fighting while you're fighting. It comes in handy when it can actually hack people's stuff or beings they're fighting's stuff to make them attack themselves. And this page just gives you pretty much an overview of everything I'm going to go over when it comes to the different perks. You're probably wondering how somebody from Earth got this type of power out of this big old space. Why does Earth just keep getting involved? See, in his lore, it was pretty much explained that he was an Earthling that was chosen at random by the last surviving Nova Corps member to receive the Nova Force. I mean, this page right here pretty much summarizes everything on his lore. How did he get here? It's a usual story. High school kid from a Long Island just trying to buy a chocolate shake. He ends up being contacted by the last warrior of a dying planet. Without anybody asking if he wants it, he's granted the power of Nova Prime, defender of the planet Xandar, calls himself Nova, which in hindsight was confusing. After a while, he loses those powers, but he joins a group who help him get them back. You know how comics, he always loses powers, get powers back. With that return of his cosmic powers comes the return of his cosmic responsibilities. He helps reform the Galactic Nova Corps, defender, all good stuff. Yeah, the Galactic Nova Corps. Yep. I mean, because you know how comics is. Like, there's little stuff like this. You know how comic events, they have it where he's stripped of his power for a little bit. But you guys know how this stuff rolls. This stuff never really lasts. So they will find a way to write him to where he would have other powers like the quantum band, so he became Quasar for 2 seconds. You know, Marvel has a lot of different artifacts that give people powers. Like quantum bands is one of the many items like this. Of course, he had this for 2 seconds. Of course, he would gain the Nova Force back again. I mean, he even says this is more like it. He even says, yeah, these bands are cool and all, but Wendell, you can have these bands back. There was even a point in comics where Nova Richard Rider, his resurrected body was a conduit of the horrors of the Cancerverse, a different universe, to pass through into the real world. And he would have like a mutated type form where his body would change and look like Cancerverse creatures and crap, to where like you would see him get like tendrils, like, yeah, he would mutate looking crazy, where you would literally see him in his base form and then you would see him change and his skin would turn purple. He would still do the standard super strength stuff, but just with some extra stuff, like with some stretchy abilities. Like, let the panel speak for themselves. Yeah, it looks a little creepy, but you guys know the constant comic book pattern of characters getting these abilities, but at the same time, you know it's inevitable that they would get rid of these type of things. Like you see Nova literally ripping out of his body. Yeah, disgusting. Blasting this stuff that was in him. Nova even says he just kind of threw up that power. He's losing certain powers that gave him certain perks, you know.
I love when Marvel Comics does stuff like this. Like, this is a good visual image of all the events that he's gone through. Cancerverse stuff he had to get out of him.
And thanks to being linked to all this stuff, he got, you of course already mentioned, the Nova Force, can fly, super strong. I didn't mention this yet, but he can release gravimetric pulses, a compressed grav pulse. Like his Nova Corps uniform, they talk about it. Uniform protects Rider from the vacuum of space, protects him against intense heat. I mean, Richard Rider Nova, he's one of those characters that's been through quite a bit of adventures, learning new stuff, gaining new abilities, learning new stuff about his already gotten abilities, like different costumes over the years. See, the interesting thing about Nova, when it comes to Richard Rider, there's times where he has the full Nova Force and there's times where he doesn't have the full Nova Force. When he actually has the full Nova Force, take this statement as you will, but they stated nothing short of Galactus will be able to take on like this. Like, they would even straight up state it, like, there'll be times where his powers be acting up. So yes, power does have fluctuations. Comics here, he says total Nova Force accessing. When we're just talking about his uniform, like when it's injured, like his suit will, his costume would seal itself or heal itself. Spider-Man even says his costume is alive. What? Alive. All Nova has to say, I'm bleeding, Nova Force. Can we run a repair? Authority granted. And it just fixes. Richard Rider's Nova Prime uniform, specially modified by the World Mind, not only helps contain and regulate Rider's power by absorbing some of the Nova Force energies, and also contains adrenaline inhibitors, neuropacifiers, and endorphin boosters that moderate Rider's mood as needed, along with the self-repairing thing I already told you about, capability, and it grants his wearer accelerated healing, self-healing. Confirmed here, he can heal faster than normal. The Nova Force will keep him alive, like when he got a hole punched in him by Zeus. And he has resistance against most radiations. Should I even have to tell you guys that he's completely bulletproof? In this occasion, Nova kind of does some symbiote type stuff where he can kind of make his own tendrils with his suit, because he's not the only one that can manipulate his costume. And just because you're a mind control type character doesn't automatically mean you can win against him, because his helmet has psionic shields. So good luck trying to mind control him. He can communicate from ridiculous distances because Nova helmets can communicate across light years. Not to mention, this page kind of gives you an overview of the different suits he has, and they talk about the adventures with these suits. you know, on pages like this can kind of give you an idea of the evolution, and he's been on plenty of adventures. Yeah, trying to light him on fire ain't gonna cut it. And since space is vast, being able to traverse such a vast thing, you would need to be able to have some type of super senses. And you guessed it, throughout his adventures, learning more about his power, accessing his full potential, he learns different things over time. One of them being able to sense the space around him. And of course, he's fast in every regard, something I'm going to bring back up again later. I mean, I haven't even gotten to his feats super deeply yet, but straight up, when it comes to his threat level, he's considered in the lore or files to be a potentially universal threat. They say he commands benevolent energies. I mean, they even go as far as saying he can generate near limitless amounts of energy. I mean, that's just obvious that he can wield a lot of energy. When this being was blitzing him, we can see him make an energy barrier. Other than shields, he can make gravity bubbles to trap beings in it to where they can't move. Perfect for containing beings. I mean, he's a police officer, Nova Corps member, so this makes sense. I'm going to bring this back up, but yeah, energy blast from his fingers. This is a common Nova Corps thing, even if we're not talking about Richard Rider, for example. Like, yeah, they can just trap objects or attacks in these gravity bubbles for defense, one could say. Like, you can kind of get an idea of what Nova or Richard Rider can do based on other Nova members. You know, they got the same power similarities. And he can just generate light. I mean, he's an energy manipulator. Of course he can do that, right? So he can not only blast out energy beams with his hands or arms, concussive type force, but also absorb stuff. Stuff that's a danger to everything and everyone. He can absorb it, then redirect it somewhere else. Because of all the different versatile abilities, he's a full-blown energy projector type character. Nova is like that. It's one of the things I'm definitely bringing it back up later in this video against him and Gladiator. I'm just quickly showing that, yeah, he can absorb energy and use that energy that you blast at him to hit you with more force backwards. They even say bigger the payback. So yeah, Nova can absorb energy and use it against you like he did Gladiator's heat vision or blasters here talking about burn, but that didn't matter. And he can even use the energy from the weapons and absorb it. See, when you break down the Nova Force, it's talked about the Nova Force comes in a lot of different flavors, including electromagnetic energy. That means anything you can do, whether it's a big ball of scrap or a magnetic force field, I can cancel it out. That's what Nova said against Magneto here. Via the Nova Force, he can make his own atmospheric field around beings to where if he catches them in space and then they can't breathe, obviously, he can make it to where they can breathe. Like in this situation. Yeah, they're a cute couple. And believe it or not, when it comes to Richard Rider, he can actually fight. Like, he's not afraid to actually use a gun. Now, when it comes to his raw strength, he's not one of those characters we're going to see him lift a lot of weight all the time. We literally see him strike real hard or fight opponents that's ridiculously durable. He can punch really hard. But narratively speaking, he should be able to lift a lot of weight too, if you wanted to. He doesn't really need to, but he can. Similar to how other Novas, like Sam, for example, this isn't necessarily Richard Rider, but I don't see no reason why Richard Rider couldn't do this, like stuff other Novas could do, lifting heavy stuff. Anything this Nova can do, Richard Rider can do when it comes to lifting several tons like this truck, lifting big stuff like this, moving 30 plus tons. I mean, this stuff should apply for Richard Rider. Because in Richard Rider's lore, they literally straight up say it. He's like narratively supposed to be a powerhouse in Marvel. Well, you guys know how Marvel powerhouses be moving planets and stuff. So like narratively, he has to be up there with them. Even if we don't necessarily see him do that when it comes to lifting stuff. In his lore, he should be by default in that. They talk about he's a class 100, which makes sense with his lore. You know how class 100 beings in Marvel can move planets and stuff and stars and stuff like Thor and them. They call him a class 100. Narratively, he has to be strong. Look how big this thing is. He easily lifts this up.
Ginormous things that's heading towards beings that have to weigh over hundreds or even thousands of tons. We rarely ever see him really use his muscles power. The Nova Force gives him super strength, just for those that forget. This big old junk, we literally see him slow down. This runaway warship, he just stopped, even though it was way bigger than him, so it shows size means nothing. So, of course, he can lift stuff like tanks, even hundreds of thousands of tons, stuff like cruise ships. I don't see no reason why he wouldn't be able to lift it.
Whether we're talking about his blast power or punches, he can put energy around his fist to hit hard, or he can just hit from long range, vice versa. And here's an example of him putting energy around his fist to punch harder with his energy. That's why I say his energy blasts and punches are similar. He can put energy around his fist. Like in this example, he destroys Kree sentries with his blast power. His blast, like, he blasted a sandwich and turned him into glass. Blast can melt blocks of steel. Big doors he can just ram through. Like make a big hole like that.
When we're talking about blast power, scrolls, even if he's outnumbered, it doesn't matter. They get incinerated.
We've seen him punch through a multi-story tall thing. You got occasions like this that give us like a bare minimum of how hard he can hit. They talk about the impact force. It's 765,000 PSF. We just getting started and this already proves he can hit with 300 tons of force. Size seems to not be an issue when it comes to hitting things and in the air ridiculously large. Might I add, we've seen Nova launch things in the air with his hits, even if they're bigger than him, like size seems to not be an issue. I mean, there was this monster that was literally compared to Godzilla, like Nova, literally just one shots and takes out. I don't think anybody in their right mind had doubts he could destroy buildings, but like big structures like this, we see him destroy with just flying through it. I think we all could agree this, yeah, he can easily destroy buildings or even mountainous-sized structures. Basically, he could just fly into all these buildings, delete them, fly to the next one, delete it with his strikes. The same goes for mountains, tremble them, delete them. He makes destroying these ships and stuff look easy. Literally just using his super speed to just ram into them and destroying that way. Just flying into them, blasting through them. It continues. In multiple comics, this is like a common theme, him just flying through ships, blasting them apart. I mean, he's consistently fighting humongous beings like this large. So yeah, Nova is a being that they call to deal with continental level threats. Yeah, he can definitely threaten multiple cities, destroy them. Continental threats are just easy for him when it comes to his blast power, punching power. You guys know how Ego is actually a literal planet, right? Like a living planet. And by the way, just a simple note, he may be a planet, but he's actually way stronger than Planetary. Like, I'm just giving you a bare minimum right quick. That Nova literally has been blasting and compete with literal planets themselves. This is giving you just a scratch of what Nova's true power is, literal Ego, the living planet. So when it comes to Nova and his overall blast power, when it comes to Ego, it's literally shown that his blast power can damage such powerful beings like this, a literal living planet. Look at his facial expression. How are you feeling? Lobotomized Ego with a single burst of Nova Force, so powerful it was almost off of the scale. They said lobotomized, not completely. He'll fix himself in a few centuries. I'm gonna get back to this in a bit, but just to let you know, he can harm like actual literal planets. This is actually more impressive than Planetary. I'm gonna talk about it later though. But without sugarcoating anything, he can literally, with a single blast, do major damage to actual planets. Powerful beings that to the point where it would take him centuries to heal, apparently. I'm pretty sure if you could do major damage to an actual literal living planet, cosmic centric type being, I'm pretty sure his attacks are way worse than nuclear bombs. His blast should have no problem shaking or quaking cities or continents around the world if you can damage a literal living planet, like Ego, who's way stronger than Planetary, might I add. I mean, this occasion right here implies he can blast with nuclear bomb type force. I don't know why he said this is his best shot that would cover 3 miles, because fighting powerhouses like the Hulk, that would suggest no, that it's way worse than that. But yeah, let's just take this as a bare minimum, guys. I know they said his best. There's no way that's his best. We just know bare minimally his hits could quake a mountain, you know. Don't ask what Dormammu, in this event, ruler of the Dark Dimension, he taken possession of Ego the living planet and launched a galaxy-wide attack. Matter of fact, he was so large that this is how he looks compared to actual literal planets or planetoids. It was even stated by Nova himself, at that size, he can tear the planet apart with his local gravity. Like, that's how big it is. You know, when planetoids get so big, they get their own gravity. So that's how big he was. Despite all of this, he was confident to be able to punch him in the jaw. Like, let you know that planet-sized stuff isn't really nothing to worry about for him. Talking about wishing me luck, I'm gonna punch him in the jaw. I brought up earlier already on how he's an energy projector, and the same blast he can use to, you know, shoot energy blasts and stuff he can shield himself with. You can kind of get an idea of how strong he is when it comes to how hard he can hit based on the stuff we've seen him shield from with his shields, right? Or his durability. You know, he can enhance his durability with energy and stuff. You know, a good example of what I'm talking about his shielding and his blast power should be the same or similar. Like, he can literally shield beings while blasting outwards at the same time, disintegrating beings. Like, all of this stuff happening at the same time while he's shielding. So that's why I say his blast and shielding should be similar when it comes to how much pressure can the shield take coming inward or how much blast he can do coming outward. They even say, you hurt me, like, let you know that, yeah, he can hurt beings just like how he can withstand hits from beings that can hurt himself. He can withstand whatever he can dish, and vice versa, you know. So in short, don't think you can just stack up on him, dogpile him, and just wait for his shield to die down. No, he would just literally blast all of you off of him if you just try to gang up on him in omnidirectional attack fashion. I mean, we've seen Nova beings withstand a lot of fours. Like, every major powerhouse you can think of, we've seen him shield or withstand attacks from, like, this being like Magus, for example. You know, Adam Warlock, you know, basically evil Adam Warlock. We've seen him get entangles with. We've seen him shield from Quasar-like blasts, then counter with his own blast. Thor-centric type characters, the Cosmic Control Rod has the kind of blast power to damage these Thor-centric type beings. And you know how the Cosmic Control Rod being used by Annihilus. This right here isn't Annihilus. This is like Blastar, who had the Cosmic Control Rod, which ridiculously powers beings up, and he's able to shield from blasts from beings like this. Keep note that Blastar in normal situations, even without the cosmic control rod, somebody that's confirmed to have the power, like under normal situations, to have the power to obliterate or destroy a world. And this is not him just being cocky, because when he's blasting beings like Thor, somebody we know is way stronger than just planet shattering. He has the power to shatter worlds more than one. I've already showed Quasar in this video, but yeah, we've seen this being Blastar match blast with Quasar. A lot of these beings be interacting with each other. Blastar's blasted She-Hulk and Thor back before. Not to mention we got on-screen visuals of this being Blastar destroying planets. And this being is amped up by the cosmic control rod. Yeah, and Nova, Richard Rider, is able to block attacks from this being, even though in this particular situation they admitted they can't win because he has the cosmic control rod. This kind of lets you know that by default he has to be way above planet busting levels of raw energy production. I mean, he's shielding from this energy. He can produce his energy outward. To put in simple terms, a planet could explode right in front of him. His force fields will be able to shield from such planetary destruction, because that's how strong his force fields are and his energy projection can put out. It can protect against planetary destruction. So blowing up a planet in his face, his body, his energy projection can withstand that force, and I would like to think that this should apply for his blast power too. I mean, I already showed the scan with Ego, him lobotomizing a being like Ego, who's literally a living planet. On top of that fact of him battling, shielding from beings that can literally destroy planets when they're unamped, and then he blocking attacks from them when they're amped up, like Blastar. Yeah, of course his blast power should easily be able to destroy planets by default. I mean, we've seen Nova go against and hit an alternate reality version of Thor. We've seen him hit with his punching power. Nova has too many showings of him competing with these heavy hitters and blasting them back, no matter if they're alternate reality versions or not. I mean, if you still have your doubts when it comes to his durability and the stuff he can withstand, he can shield from beings that are attacking with super weapons that are powered by Black Bolt's voice. They say they're shooting at us with Black Bolt's voice. A being in narration who is stated his voice could split the entire planet asunder. Black Bolt will literally cause damage to an entire planet. They talk about how his discharge shakes a continent. Black Bolt is a being. He could obliterate half this planet. And these beings are using weapons that mimic similar stuff to that. And do you still have your doubts that they could destroy, or Richard Rider could destroy a planet? You should easily be convinced of this by now. So when we're talking about smaller planets like the moon, or smaller planetoids like the moon, of course, if Nova wanted to, he can cause massive destruction to a moon-sized planetoid structure, obviously. Or if he wanted to just be a butthole, he has the raw blast power energy projection to pretty much blow through the Earth and nuke it, if with his blast power or just raw energy output, you know, based on being hit with Black Bolt's voice. Yeah, shielding, and they can produce the same blast outward. Vice versa. I mean, when it comes to durability, I mean, we've seen Nova withstand energies. You know how Galactus be going around taking energy from planets and stuff and stacking them up? Like, Nova was in an area where all these energy reserves was, and his body had to withstand all of this energy. This is probably more than planet-busting power reserved from Galactus that he eats on. And yeah, he survived. All of this energy being on top of him and stuff. The Master of Magnetism himself, known as Magneto, he's literally battling him. Magneto tossed this at him. Nova simply slices it in half with his energy projection around his fist to amp his strikes. Magneto even tries to crush him. Nova is still here. We've seen him stick Magneto. Part of the reason why he could hit so hard could be part of the reason his velocity. He can ram at you at ridiculous speeds, not just making stargates. Like, yeah, of course he can make stargates and stuff too, so he can traverse space. On some straight up stuff, he's legitly just straight up fast. Like when he was flying super fast here, they literally talk about he's moving at a 0.6 superluminal velocity, which is 60% the speed of light. Just for those that don't know, you can Google it. That's what superluminal means. Now he was approaching at 0.8 superluminal, which is 80% the speed of light. And the only reason he didn't just straight up go the speed of light is because the rest of the power was focused on something else. So yeah, that's the only reason he didn't really go the speed of light. Like in this particular situation, they talk about he's approaching sublight speed. Like it's little moments like this, they don't tell us the exact time frame he's flying these distances, but you know how wide space is, guys. He's just casually flying to different planets in really no time, like it's no big deal. Casually talking about, oh, I just passed Mars on my way to Earth. This kind of stuff just shows that he has fast and light speed. This is normal stuff he casually does. Like, you got occasions like this. This comic doesn't necessarily tell you the exact time frame he flew to the sun, but he literally took this stone, said, give me that. Let me fly this somewhere else ridiculously fast. It doesn't seem like he's that far away from the sun. Like, this had to be probably within seconds, if I'm gonna be honest. This right here would imply faster than the speed of light type movement, flight speed, not just light speed on the dot. If we assumed the distance he flew is anything like how our Earth and our sun are distanced apart from each other, if we imply that he flew right up to the sun,
this quick, even if we had lowball it and say this took 10 seconds, this would still be 50 times light speed. If I'm just making up a random number of 10 seconds, like it didn't look like it took no 5 minutes or nothing the way he flew to the sun based on the panels. But yeah, they didn't give no specific time frame on that panel, but I just assumed 10 seconds or something. 10 seconds flying from the Earth to the sun in that short amount of time would be at least 50 times the speed of light anyway. Based on the Marvel characters he's fighting, I definitely think he's faster than this, but like I'm just being disrespectful, given a bare minimum. What do you think? How fast do you think he flew to the sun? Nova's one of them people where, yeah, he can fly in a straight line fast, but no, he can actually zip around you, like on some Dragon Ball Z type stuff, like being in multiple spots, after images type style during combat. So yeah, he can fly in a straight line fast. He can also punch so fast to where his punches will look like this. Gatling gun punches, like he could just speed blitz you with his fists. Beings like Gladiator, Nova can battle this being. They can react to stuff in nanoseconds, which is 1/1000th of a second. When it comes to fighting speed, despite Gladiator being able to react to these kind of speeds or move his fist like this and just fight like this, it doesn't seem to be a crazy speed gap. So there's definitely implications there's not a wide speed gap, and he can fight beings that can react in 1/1000th of a second. He can use his flight speed in combat on top of his fist being able to move fast like this. We've seen him intercept blasts that are mid-flight to protect others, also shielding that quick. There's more occasions of how he can just burst speed, like zip towards you this quick, like you trying to leave him. Nope. Dodging venom here. Like, I'm talking about some full-blown after-image stuff. Like, you see him trying to punch Nova here. Notice Nova. Notice how he's a blur. And he's over here. That lets you know his fighting speed. Like, look at this speed implied to be able to hit all these beings too fast. This is his fist speed. Even being bombarded with all these guns, he can avoid all of this zigzagging, making sharp turns while flying. Like, don't even try to shoot bullets at this guy. He can just zip at you and blitz all y'all too quick and knock all y'all out. He uses his flight speed in combat. You see him literally blitzing from this person, blitzing over here. Like, he's using his flight speed in combat. I mean, Nova can literally do some Tasmanian devil type stuff when it comes to rotating his fist at super speed, like helicopter blades, like type of speed. But if I'm being honest, it would be kind of disrespectful if we didn't assume that Nova Prime could go massively faster than the speed of light. Even Kid Nova can go massively faster than the speed of light. It would be weird if he couldn't. It's crazy that Kid Nova got some really cool feats, but I think this should apply for Richard Rider. They're both Novas. You get the idea? These beings can fly light years, parsecs, aka more than 1 parsec, by the way, guys. Bare minimally, 1 parsec is already 3 light years, guys. These beings, these Nova beings, even though this isn't Richard Rider, this is Sam. This can give you an idea that Nova type characters can do some galaxy hopping type stuff. They even give us a time frame on how fast or how long he's been flying. So if we take this as seriously, because, you know, they said 5 minutes, 5 weeks, the answer is both, because when you're in hyperspeed, your reflexes slow down and stuff. So yeah, like in real time, you know, because super speed time doesn't count. Like real time, he's been flying from parsecs, more than 1 parsec, 2 parsecs, the bare minimum of 2 parsecs. That's literally 6 light years in 5 minutes. Basically, if you do the math, if you can cover 2 parsecs, which is 6 light years, if you can cover that in 5 minutes, if you do the math of light years in 5 minutes, 6 light years in 5 minutes, that would pretty much confirm Richard Rider Nova Prime could fly over 50,000 times the speed of light, just like Kid Nova. So yeah, he's way faster than the speed of light over thousands of times. I mean, there's no way he's way faster than Richard Rider Nova. I mean, they even have little fun races. So you know the speed has to be comparable to each other when it comes to being way faster than the speed of light. They both have extremely similar powers, and we literally see them speed off that quick. Like, you got this occasion to kind of show off his speed on how he's just zipping the places real fast. This could imply ridiculous speed too. They don't tell the time frame, but it's got to be fast. Scans like this, you see how he's passing stuff ridiculously fast, interstellar distances. When he took off here, they even says no one can catch him. So I'll let you know how fast he is. Notice how he said that even though Gladiator is right here, somebody we know is massively faster than the speed of light. When you're that fast, you technically don't even need super strength, honestly. And Nova has super strength and blast power and stuff like that. But let's talk about the opponents he's faced. Like, you know, this Gladiator race. Yeah, you remember Gladiator, one of the powerhouses of Marvel? Like, these are very strong beings, like beings that are similar to Gladiator, Nova Prime, Richard Rider. We've seen them get on full-blown battles, not scuffles, like, you know how street tiers can scuffle with powerhouses. I'm not talking about when street tiers scuffle with powerhouses. I'm talking about when the powerhouses have a full-blown fight, and it shows how hard Nova can just freaking punch. Just to give you a history lesson, doing this is way more impressive than you think. It may just look like a battle feat, but battling and damaging beings this mighty is way more impressive than just planet shattering, even though it's a small being. These small beings can pack a wallop. It's a straight on war. Punch here, gets hit back here, getting kicked. Punch. Nova's still awake. You're probably thinking, oh, this ain't impressive. This ain't the real Gladiator. This is just somebody from the same race. No, guys, him punching like this, doing damage is impressive. Gladiator is one of those powerhouses is a being that has moved entire worlds. Gladiator is the same being that can produce punches that can crack moons, planetoid structures. And I don't even know how this is possible, but apparently he can rip apart or tear apart black holes with his bare hands. And Nova not only fist fight beings in the same race as Gladiator, but also the real main Gladiator he's gotten a full-blown fight with and punching such a being that can rip apart moons and rip apart black holes, things that are worse than things that can devastate the solar system. You know, black holes can devastate the solar system. Gladiator is somebody that a lot of beings put in the same class of strength of a Hulkish type being, the Hulk. Even in Thanos' opinion, he believes that Gladiator's up there with the Hulk powerhouses. A lot of the beings in Gladiator's race aren't on his level because, like in this example, they pretty much talk about how they have to amp them to Gladiator level. So not everybody is on Gladiator's level, but yeah, we've actually seen Nova fight the real Gladiator, so it kind of adds up. They talk about how strong Gladiator is. His power is unmatched throughout the universe. And the same Gladiator is stated to be able to wrestle planets from their orbits and collapse stars with his bare hands. Bare hands. This is about Gladiator. And I just let these panels speak for themselves. Like, you can clearly tell this is not just a simple scuffle. Like, this fight is kind of serious on how they're hitting each other. This being that can collapse stars with his bare hands is hitting Nova, and they're going at it, hitting each other in kind of a serious fight. You see, look at Gladiator's facial expression. Despite all of this, Nova's able to hold his ground, punching him back here. It doesn't even seem like he's spamming energy blasts and stuff. Getting stuff like this smashed on him by Gladiator and just gets back up. Like, this is a full-blown serious fight. And despite all the blast power that Gladiator has, Nova was able to turn this energy against him because he can absorb it, like I mentioned earlier, and blasted the same energy back. Keep in mind that Gladiator's gotten in full fights with Thor. Like, this is a full-blown fight, not a scuffle, both leaking blood. They was both kind of sleepy. Yeah, it's pretty clear Nova's fists have weight behind them. Keep in mind that beings in the Gladiator race, they get power based on their confidence. Just in those occasions, him battling with Gladiator that much pretty much proves that larger planets that are way bigger than Earth, Nova should have no problem trembling larger planets like this with his fist or punches or blasts, or even hitting hard enough to where he can destroy super large planets like Jupiter. I don't see no reason why that would be an issue if he's fighting Gladiator, somebody that can destroy stuff that's bigger than Jupiter or planets like Jupiter. Despite Jupiter being super large and the Earth being a decent sized planet too, Jupiter makes Earth look like a joke, and look how small Jupiter looks compared to the sun. Beings like Gladiator can rip apart stuff like the sun. Things that are way bigger than large planets like Jupiter. Having the strength to rip apart this would basically mean like pretty much all the planets in the solar system. You should have no problem devastating with your blast if you can match Gladiator this hard in a hard fight where they both kind of got drowsy from their collateral of their fight. Him countering his blast by absorbing his blast outwardly. Nova should have no problem blowing up the sun if he really wanted to, or simply produce similar energy that equivalent to an actual black hole. He's matching Gladiator this much, a being that can apparently rip apart black holes. Like, how's that even possible? I want you guys to remember Annihilus that can do this to Thor-centric type characters. And then the real Thor, in this occasion, Annihilus almost knocked out the real Thor, almost made him collapse with his hits. Oh boy. I want you guys to remember that Annihilus has like these bands on that amp him up even further, more than his base power he already has. This makes it even more impressive at the fact that Nova literally boxing it out with this power, and it's like a full-blown fight these two are having. He's withstanding his blast, Nova's blasting him. They're just exchanging blows. He ends up losing these bands, and that's when Nova said, "Your throat is literally mine." Like, yeah, Nova did this with his bare fist. Keep in mind that base Annihilus can slugfest it with heavy hitters, clashing with them in their fists like Hulk. This was a hard-fought battle, and he was damaged, though, just to let you know. He did this battle after withstanding or shielding from a ridiculously large blast. Like, the radius of this blast was huge, even like, yeah, that's Galactus. That was this like ridiculous large blast radius. Like, I'm talking about wiping out a ton of planets. Like, the blast radius was that wide. But alliteration perimeter encompassing 3 star systems. Because I don't think you guys realize how far each star is away from each other. For it to reach another star, for his radius to reach other stars or other star systems, the radius would have been astronomical, and yet Nova shielded from that mess. Something that was wiping out dozens of planets, and they had to shield from blasts like this. 3 star systems encompassing it. The perimeter encompasses that and does not slow. And after this happened, like, you literally see Galactus right there. Like, it was a ridiculously large explosion. Nova shielded from all that mess. Obviously, I'm not saying Nova's it's equal to somebody like Galactus. Galactus is like a cosmic being, basically, especially at his full power. Annihilus even noticed, oh man, he survived Galactus' rage. If you're skeptical, you got to remember, you know, Silver Surfer, Herald of Galactus, has done galaxy leveling type stuff too. So these two literally lock arms with each other. So if Nova's somewhere in the ballpark with Silver Surfer, I'm not getting in a debate on who you think is stronger. That's not the point. The point is that he's in his ballpark. Yeah, I'm not really trying to do a versus battle, but yeah, Silver Surfer.
can literally blast with so much energy to where you got to be light years away to be safe from the blast. Like I'm talking about, he can blast with so much energy, his blast radius can mess up a whole galaxy from the energy. Stated it's a black hole brought by Silver Surfer's discharge. Just in case you had your doubts about Nova being able to withstand blasts like that. Yeah, powerhouses can do stuff like this, mess up galaxies. Silver Surfer can. Nova's battling them. You get the idea. There's clear narrative and writer intent that Silver Surfer can destroy an entire galaxy. So while it is true, Nova's probably not up there with Galactus. When it comes to Silver Surfer, I think they're somewhere in the same league of powerhouses. Like, yeah, Silver Surfer is like a poster boy of Marvel powerhouses. Nova by default should be in that range of power. Blast power. Like you see their energies discharging against each other. Like they're literally kind of like having a beam stroke or tug of war type thing. Because they're both like energy manipulators. So yeah, without a doubt, he can hit with galaxy shattering force. Yeah, there was like this antimatter pulse that was going to eliminate all positive matter across one galaxy. You guessed it, Nova had to push against such ridiculous force. Not to mention Silver Surfer and Gladiator be battling each other in the past. So it lets you know how strong Gladiator is. Nova has fought both these beings. There's implication that he's even way above this when it comes to his shooting and raw blast power. There's this being that was blasting Nova with these stones, not the Infinity Stones, the different stones that granted you ridiculous power. We literally seen Nova shield and push against this type of stuff. They even narrated even further saying, I'm just about holding his blast back. Nova force is at maximum. He's literally holding off a god. Even people looked up like, whoa, the Sphinx got him. And he says, Nova says, I'm okay. He's blasting through this kind of power. A godlike being, like they even talk about here, this guy that Nova's taking blast from is accumulating his new power levels. He's learning how to use these stones in conjunction. Very soon now he will collapse this magical structure and re-enter the real universe, but then he will have used the Kai stones to remake the universe. Like, these are the type of blasts that Richard Rider Nova is withstanding, guys. Beings that are powerful enough to apparently remake the universe. Just to give you an idea, he has gotten in fights with the real Thor. Just to remind you, narratively speaking, he's supposed to be up there with the powerhouses, striking and harming them consistently. Not to mention you don't see him spamming energy blast too much. It's just straight punches. Punches that toss Thor like this, but they ended up shaking hands. Even fakish Thors can clash and strike hard enough to where they can release energies that's similar to the Big Bang. So narratively, being up there with the powerhouses, the writers wanting Nova to be up there with the powerhouses just kind of let you know how strong these beings are. I mean, just fake Thors can make shockwaves that reach throughout the cosmos. So that universe shielding stuff's starting to make more sense when you look at Nova. You guys know how Thor can dent Silver Surfer's head, a literal dent. Nova has fought both these beings. You know, is it really starting to hammer home how hard these powerhouses in Marvel can hit? And we see Nova do this to freaking Silver Surfer, grunting face. You know, he's narratively supposed to be up there with him. And you remember how I brought up earlier how he was able to take on or do major damage to Ego the Living Planet, which earlier I told you how it was way more impressive than just planetary. Beings like Galactus, who have ridiculous power. He's a guy that is the reason why Silver Surfer can destroy galaxies. He gave Silver Surfer the power to destroy a galaxy. That same guy, Galactus, said this being Ego's power is incalculable. I'm pretty sure when he says incalculable, it's more than just planet busting. He wouldn't say somebody's power is incalculable being that much weaker than him. You know what I mean? There's even absurd statements like Galactus saying he was powerless against Ego the Living Planet. Ego the Living Planet actually boxed it out with Galactus before. Yeah, guys, I know Galactus fluctuates in power. So yeah, take these like with some grain of salt. It doesn't mean he's like equal to Galactus's full power, but like in this particular situation, it was even stated equaled his power. No, surpassed his own, implying that Ego surpassed Galactus' power in this particular situation. Thor, somebody I also showed Nova fighting in this same video, Thor's opinion about power, like this is old comics, of course. A lot of these characters have gotten stronger since then, but this is still impressive though. Even back in these days, it says neither anyone else has enough power to destroy the living planet. This lets you know how strong Ego is. It's even stated here about how Galactus and Ego were in this little cosmic team type of thing. The fact that he was able to take on something was a literal living planet, but he was way scarier than just planetary. For him to be able to do something like this simple to Ego, with just blast, and just lobotomize him with blast power like this, after all them statements I just told you about him, that was scary. So him actually battling this Ego, the living planetary sized being, is actually more akin to the galactic or universe shattering power. Lobotomizing this guy like this. I repeat, him messing up this planet-sized being is way more impressive than galaxy shattering, if that makes sense to you. Like, this Ego, the living planet, is a planet-sized thing, sure. He's way more powerful than planet-busting type power. You know what I mean? Not to mention there's implications his strikes can hit the Hulk and do damage to him. Thor said that Galactus nor Thor could beat the living planet. That's how crazy Ego is. Even Sam Alexander Nova's gotten in scuffles with Egos. So you can tell it's narratively meant. Not only did we see him fight some creatures, we actually seen him ram a meteor into Ego, trying to mimic the dinosaur extinction thing, and gave Ego a headache. Nova was helpful on taking on this super ego Dormammu fusion kind of thing, with the help of this big old gun, of course, infused with anti-magic made of pure Mysterium. You know how Marvel has like these super elements and stuff? With all these assets put together, Richard Rider Nova helping with the full Nova Force and trying to push this giant bullet to light speed, they was actually able to help one-shot such a being. One could say this is partly because of hacks and Nova's power helping it too. And this is a magic being's nightmare. Like, this is anti-magic. It punches through the front of Dormammu's borrowed planet-sized skull and creates an exit wound at the back. Annihilates everything in between. Dormammu is ejected from the shell, returning violent to his dark dimension, banished and wounded. His host, Ego the Living Planet, is reduced to a new asteroid belt at the outer reaches of the Spartax system. You know, you got an alternate reality Thanos. We've seen Richard blast and apparently harm based on his facial expression. We even see him get in a scuffle with the actual Skyfather Zeus. Like, I'm not trying to say he's equal to a Skyfather like Zeus, but it's moments like this that's pretty cool to see. Zeus, the deity. Zeus is an extremely mighty being, a being that can easily destroy multiple galaxies and stuff with his blast power and stuff. Because you know how Zeus can match Odin and they can threaten multiple realities or universes. I'm not going to lie, Nova did get kind of handled, but there's nothing wrong with really losing to Zeus. Zeus is just a monster. He survived in this area where space-time was collapsing. The laws of physics no longer apply. He survived this. Nova's the type of guy that can cause a whole star to go supernova if he really wanted to, easily. Did you guys know that Nova was this mighty? How strong do you think he is? Did you know he was this much of a powerhouse in the Marvel comics? There's a good chance that you probably was sleeping on him because the live-action Guardians of the Galaxy movies didn't really give you a feeling or respect on how strong the Nova Corps really would be. Right. But what do you guys think? What did you learn new? Did you know that Nova was a real powerhouse up there with Silver Surfer, the big heavy hitters? You probably didn't. But before I get going, I got to say thanks for the donations, everybody. Helps out a lot. Respect Nova. Richard Rider. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.